November 14 every year is celebrated as the World Diabetes Day. The entire month of November is meant to improve the public awareness of the ravages that diabetes can cause to the eye and other parts of the body. This lecture on diabetes and the eye is part of the initiative by the Kerala Society of Ophthalmic Surgeons to improve public awareness about the ravages that diabetes can cause in the eye. This is also part of the Non-Communicable Disease Control and Awareness Program, another initiative by the Kerala Society of Ophthalmic Surgeons. I am Dr. Meena Chakrabarti, the past president of this association, and it's a pleasure for me to deliver this lecture. This is the statistics of blindness in the world. There are about 36 million people in the world who are blind, out of which 253 million people are visually impaired and 81% of these people are aged between 50 years and over, which is probably the most productive years in their life. And it is also sad to note that 84% of the visual impairment results from chronic eye diseases. We are all aware of the various consequences of visual impairment, which can range from an increase in the amount of unemployed people, increased likelihood of being involved in a vehicle collision, and various other factors which impair their day-to-day activities. If you look at the various causes which are responsible for blindness, cataract is the most important cause, which accounts for nearly 39% of the blindness in our country, followed by refractive errors, primary open angle glaucoma, and it is also significant that diabetic retinopathy accounts for 4% of the visually impaired in our community. The World Health Assembly in May 2013 and its member states adopted 9 voluntary global targets for the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases to be attained by 2025, and two important targets among this are to reduce the incidence of diabetes and obesity by 0% and to also to bring about a 25% reduction in the blood pressure. If you look at the various challenges that has been identified in the diagnosis and management of diabetic retinopathy, the most important among them is a delay in the diagnosis. It is also sad to note that there is limited access of patient education material on diabetic retinopathy and diabetic macular edema, and there are also inadequate referral pathways from the general physician or the diabetologist to the ophthalmologist. Hence, diabetic retinopathy management will involve a multidisciplinary team integration which will involve the activities of the general physician or the diabetologist, the nephrologist, as well as the ophthalmologist. Reimbursement restriction on approved treatment is seen as the identified challenge for patients coming in for treatment late or not taking treatment in about 35.7% of cases. Ineffective screening services accounts for 27.9%. There is no universal guidelines on referral and screening. These are all the problems that a community is facing in the early diagnosis and management of diabetic retinopathy. And as an organization, Kerala Society of Ophthalmic Surgeons has been looking into each and every one of these factors, conducting diabetic screening camps and also formulating adequate referral pathways for the general physician or the diabetologist to the ophthalmologist. The clinical guidelines for early detection of diabetic retinopathy and diabetic macular edema in type 1 and type 2 diabetes is given here. If you have type 1 diabetes, within the first 3 to 5 years after diagnosis of diabetes, the patient should be examined once. By examination, I mean a dilated fundus evaluation has to be done at least once. Subsequently, these patients will need yearly follow-up. In type 2 patients, at the time of diagnosis of diabetes, a detailed ocular evaluation which also involves a dilated fundus evaluation for the detection of any retinopathy changes should be done. This is at the time of diagnosis, and subsequently, if they have no retinal changes, they should be followed up on a yearly basis, and should they have retinal changes, they should be followed up at 4 monthly intervals. A pregnant diabetic is a very, very fragile situation in which there is the risk of rapid progression of retinopathy, and in these patients, prior to conception, adequate counseling should be given, a dilated fundus evaluation should be done, and they also should be evaluated once during each trimester of pregnancy. The eye examination should always be performed through a dilated pupil by a qualified eye specialist, and abnormal findings necessitate more frequent follow-up in these patients. I have put together the various stages of diabetic retinopathy, starting from the early stages when there are just a few microaneurysms at the center of the retina. There is no visual impairment for this patient at this stage, such as you see in this picture. This is a non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy which has progressed if you do not control your diabetes, and it progresses from background diabetic retinopathy to a moderate non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy. This is a more advanced stage called an advanced non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Here proliferation has started. By proliferation I mean growth of new vessels into the retina, and you can see a small area of bleeding here. In this patient, the bleeding has increased significantly, and here the retina has detached from this bed. And this patient, both these situations, the patient will be having very poor vision. Even at this stage, if the patient does not take treatment in the form of either laser photocoagulation, intravitreal injection, or vitreoretinal surgery, his disease will progress further. This is one such patient who has a significant amount of bleeding into his retina. And then this another patient who has developed a traction retinal detachment where the retina is separated from his bed. And these are all situations like this. Here is a combination of vitreous hemorrhage with traction retinal detachment. All the situations are end stage diabetic retinopathy conditions in which even if you do a prolonged vitreoretinal procedure and successfully reattach the retina, the final visual recovery is going to be poor. So the aim of management of diabetic retinopathy is to identify retinopathy at this stage itself, give the patient appropriate counseling so that he is aware of the condition in his eye, he comes for regular follow-up, and any new change that occurs in his eye is detected at its earliest and managed. This is one such patient in whom the retinopathy had progressed to the development of a clinically significant diabetic macular edema. Diabetic macular edema is a complication of diabetic retinopathy where the patient's near vision, finer vision, reading vision is affected, and these patients usually have significant swelling and collection of cholesterol in the macular area. This patient has been managed with laser photocoagulation. This is a picture of his nerve. Immediately after laser photocoagulation, the white spots that you see here are laser burns, and it has healed very well. And in course of time, this is 5 years after laser photocoagulation, you can see that all these yellow areas have disappeared completely, and the patient has a near normal retina. There has also been a significant improvement in his vision. So early treatment of diabetic retinopathy with laser photocoagulation is very important. Laser still, although there are other modalities of treatment, laser photocoagulation still remains the gold standard for treatment of diabetic retinopathy. This is another patient with clinically significant diabetic macular edema. This is before treatment. After treatment, you can see the laser burns in the macular area where all these areas where there is collection of hard exudates, cholesterol and hard exudates is treated. And this is 2 to 3 years down the line when you can see only the laser burns and all these yellow collection has disappeared. The patient's central retina is normal, and he has retained a vision of 6 by 6. When the retinopathy progresses to a stage that there is significant swelling in the macula, we will not be able to do laser photocoagulation or use very high intensity burn which will actually burn the retina and reduce the vision. So in these patients, to reduce the swelling in the retina, we will inject an antivascular endothelial growth factor or a long-acting steroid such as Osudex sustained release steroid preparation to reduce the macular edema. And when the macular edema decreases, then laser photocoagulation can be done, such as in this patient, and the patient can be kept on follow-up. At each follow-up visit, the swelling in the retina is assessed by looking at the patient's vision and also by performing a scan of the central retina, which is called an optical coherence tomography. And if there should be a significant swelling in the retina, then the injections have to be repeated and laser given. This is the patient after 12 months of treatment. You can see that the macula has returned back to normal. If the retinopathy progresses beyond this stage and there is either bleeding into the retina or a significant retinal swelling and proliferation of fibrous tissue, such as you see in this patient's eye. So you can see fibrous tissue has proliferated, white fibrous membrane has proliferated on the retinal surface. In this situation, vitreoretinal surgical procedure is necessary to remove all the membrane on the retinal surface, stain the retina, and deroof the central retina so that the macular edema will reduce. If you look at this patient's nerve, you can see that the central retina is plastered with cholesterol crystals. The visual recovery is going to be poor in these patients, but we can stabilize the retinopathy in this condition by surgery. So to summarize the guidelines for management of diabetic retinopathy, the treatment is undertaken as a multidisciplinary approach in all patients with diabetes to achieve optimal glycemic control. The target HbA1c, which is the mean 3-month diabetic control level, should be less than 7.0% in these patients. The blood pressure should be adequately managed so that the systolic blood pressure should always be less than 130 millimeter of mercury. The serum lipid profile, cholesterol and triglyceride level should be maintained. These are both blood pressure, uncontrolled blood pressure, as well as an increase in the serum lipid profile may increase the severity of diabetic retinopathy, and hence it has to be kept under control. Ensure that all people who have diabetes has a dilated fundus examination and visual acuity assessment at the time of diagnosis and at least once every year. Screen children with type 1 diabetes during the prepubertal time and yearly thereafter. Examine high-risk patients, for example, patients with longer duration of diabetes, poor glycemic control, patients with fluctuating blood pressure or elevated lipid profile without retinopathy at least annually to detect changes of these conditions as well as early changes of diabetic retinopathy. Examine patients with any signs of non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy annually or at 3 to 6 monthly intervals depending upon the diabetic retinopathy severity. Refer to a vitreoretinal specialist urgently within 4 weeks if there is any unexplained fall in visual acuity or if there is any suspicion of diabetic macular edema or proliferative diabetic retinopathy. All cases of mild or moderate non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy should be followed up closely to detect signs of sight-threatening retinopathy. Conduct a comprehensive eye examination on all pregnant women with diabetes during the first trimester and there at monthly intervals till delivery to detect any aggravation in the diabetic retinopathy, and should an aggravation in the retinopathy be noted, they should be treated with laser photocoagulation urgently. The patient should get their hemoglobin A1C checked at 3 monthly intervals. A cardiovascular risk assessment, including the blood pressure, lipid profile, height, weight, etc., should be monitored. The kidney functions, especially look for microalbuminuria, uh, unstable renal status, kidney status, can result in a significant amount of renal thickening and swelling and bring down the patient's vision significantly and also reduce the effect of the treatment modalities that we are giving to the patient. Sensation and circulation of the feet should be examined at regular intervals. Retinal checkup at least once every 2 yearly if there are no changes in the retina, and a follow-up plan for care should be formulated for each patient. I thank you very much for your kind hearing.